Welcome to the Millennial and a Boomer Walk into a Coffee Bar podcast.
The very best podcast to get your life advice in the form of a grande caramel macchiato in a venti cup, 1/3 whole milk, 1/3 almond milk, 1/3 soy milk, double the amount of vanilla syrup, caramel wall in the cup, no caramel drizzle on top, upside down, of course, tall ice cup, whipped cream, rounded lid, one shot extra espresso, decaf, cinnamon sprinkled on the top, and for the name, that's David, spelled Dafydd, please.
Or to get your business, finance, and life support black coffee advice, I'm Dan, I'm a Boomer.
And I'm Chase, the Millennial. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, very good. Welcome to another podcast of Millennial and a Boomer Walk into a Coffee Bar. As you can see, I'm here with Chase, my son, and I'm Dan, which was in the
Still in the intro. I'm
introduction.
still the Millennial.
Hadn't changed much, but we got a cup of coffee here. And I thought what we would do, and we did this on the last podcast, is in order to come to a better agreement and understanding of the differences, I thought we could come back and actually give a little bit of a history and a little bit of a viewpoint of what some of the values or what some of the characteristics of a boomer, which we did the last one. And then Chase, this show is all yours for the most part. I'm sure I'll comment accordingly as
I would have no doubt.
yeah. So but anyway, so yeah, we talked about what the boomer did and how that transpired. And now, Chase, take it away. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, I'm excited to dig in, but I think before we get to that, I wanted to go over the feedback. So we've started getting messages and comments and reviews and things like that, and we got a really interesting question. So I think it was episode 2. We talked about how to run an effective meeting.
Meetings, right?
And here's what I got. I got a follow-up question. If someone sends me a calendar invite for a meeting, what are the rules of forwarding to someone else who's not listed by the organizer?
Well, that's a great question, actually, because um, the stakeholders should be in attendance to the meeting, right? We can agree on that one too. However, if you want to forward that meeting notice on to someone that was not included by the original organizer, you probably should reach out to them. And it's easy to do with an email, a text, or a phone call, or even go talk to them face to face and just say, hey, so and so, I think would add value to this. So I think it's a good thing. It's a little frustrating when someone just shoots your meeting notice off to other people because they may have been excluded for some reason, a professional reason, a contribution reason, whatever that they know. So I think if you do that, you should check with the organizer before you extend that invitation to other people.
Awesome. Okay, cool. One other piece of feedback. We got a really great, from your perspective,
Oh,
message.
good. I'm anxious to remind me what this one. And go ahead. You got 15 minutes to talk about this one.
I got a text from my friend the other morning and it said, "Good morning, Chase. I had a chance to listen to your podcast. Your dad is very cool and wise. I see how the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. I appreciate your friendship. Hope to connect soon. God bless."
Wow, that's I appreciate that. Those are some kind words. Could you read that again? So, I just think I love feedback and bring it on, either positive or negative. I think it's good, but I do appreciate that. I'm hoping that I can convey some wisdom to the. If he was a friend of yours, he was probably a
Friend of yours? I don't know what.
millennial.
Oh, a millennial. Actually, I don't know. He is probably Gen X.
Oh
Who are
well,
they?
yeah,
Yeah.
your sister.
Oh, that's right.
Well, good. I did want to talk about one bit of feedback that I got back too, and it was, and I wish I had it here and that I could read it, but it goes like this. It was like, hey, great podcast, appreciate it, enjoyed it. However, I would like to hear how you handle conflict between a millennial and a boomer, right? And so maybe in the next episode or this episode or the next one after that, you'll get to see a little bit about that. But I thought that was interesting too, because there are differences. Just because they're differences doesn't mean you can go toe to toe with it, but
Yeah.
there's got to be a common ground. So anyway, let's jump right into the millennial list of educate me, Chase, on the
Yeah.
millennials.
So, who are these crazy millennials? Well, I'm so glad that you asked. Millennials were born from 1981 to 1996. And of all generations that have come up to this point, we are the most analyzed. Really, I would say maybe scrutinized intensely.
I, I would say so because everybody's got their magnifying glass on the millennials, and everybody has something to say about the millennials. And remember, there's 72 million boomers in this world, so I think a lot of that comes from the boomers.
Well, interestingly, how do you get to that? Like, why are we the most analyzed? Because we were the digital natives. We didn't grow up without technology, right? Those that were born in the early 80s, they were getting this technology as they were maturing and becoming, not children, preteen teens. And so data became much more
Yeah.
available and easier to digest and to go over. So it really lends itself to easier to analyze. And I think that we've continued to see that trend with Gen Z and then Gen Alpha and whatever is coming up next. I'm sure they'll have even more. So we have done a few things though.
Well, before you get there, let me just say this. I forgot that you drank out of a garden hose, that you rode bicycles growing up, that you stayed out until it was dark, and you didn't sit there on your device. And so, yeah, that I learned from that. That's a good point. There is you guys had what I'll call a traditional growing up period because you weren't inundated with technology. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's true. We were the last generation to come home when the street lights turn on. That was us.
Hmm.
Yeah. But we have killed a couple things.
Yeah,
We've
you certain some of the things I actually hold near and dear to my heart.
I think first and foremost is we've pretty well just done away with mayonnaise. It's
Not something that I would really have put on my top 10, but, I like mayonnaise, so but
yeah, yeah. We have killed it though, for the most part. Interestingly, shopping malls. When we grew up, shopping malls were the thing. I mean, that's where you went to go hang out with friends. That when I was growing up, the only Chick-fil-A they had were the shopping
that's
mall
right.
Chick-fil-A's.
That's right.
And so we went there to get our chicken. But they're pretty well they're drying up quickly. I know there's been a little resurgence post uh, COVID, but all in all, shopping malls are going down. And maybe one day we ought to talk about my idea for renovating a mall. Man, it's good. It's only a couple $1,000,000. So if anyone wants to
Invest, right?
invest,
Just
we're taking
throw it out
investments
right
now.
now.
But it is a mega mall. That's what we're calling it, the mega mall school. Working title, obviously.
Yep, yep.
We've killed off paper napkins. We don't
What
use
do you
paper
wipe your
napkins.
face with?
Whoa, that's why you wear long sleeves, of course. The Big Mac, that was big stuff.
Breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. The Big Mac is the Big Mac. The Golden Arch is the Big Mac.
There's only about 2% nutritional value in one of those puppies.
I've seen those things where they put them out for a year and they don't deteriorate or they don't but man, they're so good. Oh my god.
Uh,
And you have to have a napkin to wipe your
you,
face after you
well,
eat a
that's
Big Mac.
probably what happened. We did away with the Big Mac, and the napkin was collateral damage. I don't know. Bar soap. After
Yeah.
you eat your Big Mac, you had to use the bar soap to wash it down and get all the mayonnaise special spread off. It's all coming. It's all
It
there's a
it's
theme.
it's making sense here
Yeah.
to me.
But yeah, bar soap. Well, I can't tell you the last time I used bar soap. In fact, yes, I can. When I was staying at your house in Utah, the only thing that was in there was bar soap.
That's right. I've got it there. I used bar soap, 2 hours ago.
Oh, that's funny. Department stores. That kind of goes along with the malls, but
Yeah.
we do a lot of our shopping online. We let the social media influencers tell us what to buy, which is silly. Um, diamonds. Diamonds. I'm interested in this one because you know, I feel like again, I was probably as an older millennial, I was probably one of the last ones to think that diamonds are still just like a normal thing for a wedding ring and
Well,
for jewelry and different things. A lot of my friends have done pearl engagement rings. I've seen all kinds of weird stuff over the years.
that's funny because, my wife wanted a diamond when we got married, and she settled for a cubic zirconium. So and subsequently, I did buy her a diamond, but, I've seen composite rings for wedding rings from millennials. I've seen band-aids that were wrapped around the finger as
Yeah.
here's a representation of my heart, a kind of a broken heart or something. But
Lots of rubber or, silicone or whatever it
silicone,
is.
right, right.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then I have actually a lot of friends that I would say are, like, older millennials, maybe even some that are kinda Gen X. They're getting tattoo rings now. That's like a
Seen
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Seen that. Seen that.
So, anyway, they're gone. Um, I would say that beer, wine, and things like that. I think wine is starting to make a little bit of a resurgence with some of the millennial mommies, but it's just not the same. The culture is not the same
Yeah.
around that.
Yeah, that's and that I think that's tied a little bit maybe to the health thing that millennials do. I think they have a little better interest in eating right and drinking right, right? So
Yeah, well, I think so. That's probably part of it. I think the other part of it is we're too fancy for that, right? You go to some of these like the cocktail receptions for work or whatever, and it's the millennials that have the big frou-frou drinks.
yeah, with the umbrella in the
Yeah, they've got something like that, or they've got, I don't drink, so I don't know, but they've got, these fancy little cups with like this much liquid, and it probably costs $42 for that little thing. And so they're much more refined, is the way they would describe it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's just a different culture around that. Additionally, banks. I have to go into a bank from time to time because I'm a business owner, and there's just certain pieces there you still have to go in for. But I would say before starting my business, I don't know the last time I went into a bank. You open the account online, you transact online, you take a picture of your check. Like, why go into a bank?
yeah. I go into a bank, went into a bank on Saturday.
It,
Just saying.
yeah. Interestingly, the chain restaurants,
Yeah.
Applebee's, Chili's. And I read a really interesting article the other day. And again, family friendly show, but the restaurants like Hooters and all these guys, they're falling apart because millennials don't go into that. Maybe we're too refined for that as well. I don't know. But those types of chain restaurants that were really big in the '90s and early 2000s, they're just not somewhere we. I would much rather go. Oh, here, let me tell you. If you're in Dallas Fort Worth, the absolute best Philly cheesesteak is in Euless, Texas, right by Dallas Fort Worth
Airport.
Airport International, and they're the best. They are so greasy and so delicious and so fresh.
Yep. Yep.
Best in Texas. So, but yeah, and I'm not going to somewhere where I could if I'm in, I'll be in Miami for work in a while. I'm not going to go eat at a Chili's while I'm down there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to eat at something local and
The
something
mom and
unique.
pop and the fresher food and, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Wait, one of the things that we've killed is oil. What kind of oils have we killed? It was on the list. I don't know.
I don't know. I never got into the details behind that, but, I got to imagine the cooking oils is what I would think. You probably use, coconut
Oh, yeah, yeah.
oil
No, yeah,
or
we don't
you
do
don't use
canola oil. That's a
no, yeah, yeah, yeah,
terrible
yeah,
vegetable
that's
oil we don't use. Lots of coconut oil. I like a scoop of coconut oil in my coffee, but that's neither here nor there. We've also killed cereal, and I'll tell you, this is kind of funny. I just hired a vice president of academics for our company, and we were kind of debating back and forth, like, okay, what's her title? What is she going to do? Like all the stuff as we were hiring for this position. And the joke was she loves cereal. And so I said, well, why don't we make you the vice president of cereal? The next meeting we had the next day, she walks in with a box of my favorite cereal. She goes, give me the job. I'm here, coach.
so that's managing your career. She must have
Managing your
listened to
career.
our podcast previously, so
Yeah. So cereal, we don't really eat a lot of cereal. Again, not a ton of nutritional value there. So we kind of
yeah.
stay away from it. I'm going to skip through a couple of these here: fashion, loyalty, marriage, and the American dream. We're going to dig into those as we get a little bit lower here on the list. But we have changed a lot of those pieces of this puzzle, and we'll dig. Um, we would consider ourselves work martyrs.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what a work martyr is.
Well, a work martyr is I have to work. I'm the best worker on the floor. I'm the smartest person in the room, and you should be darn happy that you got me. And so I'll be here and work for you, even though it may not. And now I'm looking at it from a Boover standpoint, and I'm probably tainted. Of course, I am. But I get the idea that they're here. because they have to work and you're lucky to have. Does that resonate with what you think of millennials have?
I think to a point, there's a shred of truth to that. Um, when we think of work, it's not so much that I'm here to just punch the clock. I spent a lot of time researching the company. I spent a lot of time determining what are the core values. I spend a lot of time so that when I finally sign on the dotted line, I'm bought in.
Yeah.
And it's more to us than just 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever. It's I'm going to help drive the mission of this, which probably unfortunately for millennials, the mission usually has nothing to do with the core business. But we get so tied up in the mission of whatever the social justice
And
impact thing
I
is.
see what you're saying.
And so if you don't treat us right, you're like, wait a minute, I'm here. This is me. I'm here to do the and but that has nothing to do with putting dollars in the bank account. We don't even replicate our own salary in some of these positions. So I get it. I get it. Millennials also would rather travel than buy a home. And I'm going to push back a little bit on this one. I would say, yes, we like to travel, right? There's all kinds of travel influencers and travel this and travel that. And travel has gotten a lot easier in the last 20, 30 years. So we can get there a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Inversely, uh, the price of owning a home has grown way faster than the inflation of our salaries, right? We have not gotten up to the same level of salary compared to how much the house costs.
I believe that, and I've heard. In fact, I saw something on one of the social medias that that was the boomers' fault, right? Because the boomers have bought up all the houses, and we don't owe mortgages. And now the millennials come, the house prices are higher, the interest rate on loans is much higher, and therefore it's been almost. You can't buy a house. I don't know how young people make it today to go buy a house and invest in that, but
I think this is per our last episode, right? We talked about millennials pushing against the common narrative of living in the city, working in
right,
downtown.
right, right.
I think this is also playing into that because they've realized, oh, I can buy a house. I just have to be an hour outside of town, but I can do it.
Yeah.
So interesting. We'll dig into that more throughout the season, I'm sure. Many millennials are supported by their parents. There's the kind of joke like, oh, the millennials live in the parents' basement. The truth is, most millennials still have some form of support coming from their parents. And it doesn't have a stigma. When boomers hit 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I'm out.
I was on my own, 17 years old. I had moved out.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did.
And there really wasn't any indication that you would ever move back. Like, you're done.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'll figure it out from here on.
But we always knew that the safety net was there too. And I think the millennials understand that as well. I think parents are parents, regardless of what generation they are. They're still parents. So.
Yeah. Millennials have a whole lot of debt. They have a lot of debt. And it's not just mortgage debt, good debt, right?
Yeah.
They got a lot of credit card debt. They have a ton of student loan debt.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we talked about this on an earlier episode. Millennials are like, hey, college probably isn't the right fit for everyone. There's absolutely no reason to be $200,000 in debt for a degree that only gets you $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that we've realized that we've hit it, but there's still a ton of credit card debt out there. Millennials are really good at making and keeping resolutions.
This one surprised me a little bit, but as I started to think about it, I thought, boy, they are. I know even in you and your family, you've always made resolutions. But by golly, by darn, you've actually been able to keep those and drive towards those, and I applaud you for that as well. Even when you did that with your children, you said it's really good to have a goal this year. What's your goal? And you walked it through them. And I was surprised at some of the goals that your kids came up with too, is to read books and do that, and to make money this year. I want to make X amount of dollars. So
We should go through that sometime on an episode. That was a ton of fun for us to work on with our kids.
it was good, and the kids learned a little responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
Millennials, we also read a lot.
Yeah.
And we visit libraries. Libraries kind of were not cool there for a while.
Yeah, that I was surprised by that too. But if you've ever gone to a library, uh, there's a lot of and at first I thought, "Oh, yeah, they're going for the free internet," you know what I mean?
which we were to start
Yeah,
with.
and that's what the draw-in was, but I tell you, I'm really impressed that millennials read quite a bit. Now, I'd be interested, are you reading, uh, something that you can touch and hold, or are you reading on your electronic device? And maybe that's another discussion a little later, but
Yeah, no, I think we should because I just downloaded 3 audiobooks and 4 ebooks to my iPad from the library. So there's a whole thing there. We'll talk about that. Millennials say they have a high level of stress and anxiety, mostly over money, and we are causing the next generation. Right, we're the ones kind of in the schools right now as the teachers and the assistant principals. Um, but we're bringing in something called SEL, social emotional learning, and we're all it is transferring our anxiety from us to them. It's
yeah,
it's not the
yeah.
best, so we can talk about that more. It's got the best intentions and the absolute worst delivery.
Results. Yeah, yeah,
So that's another thing for another day. We love the internet, we
yep.
love our phones, and we're on them frequently. If you're watching the YouTube version, which is our favorite way to ingest this podcast, is the video version. You can see I've probably checked my phone once or twice since we've been doing this. We also believe in working remotely strongly. We love working remotely. I always say, man, I get so much more work done when I'm remote as compared to when I'm in person. Now, this isn't true for every person. I think remote working works really, really well for some people, and it works really, really bad for others. But as a whole, millennials like the remote working aspect.
You know what? It drives me crazy with the technology and everything that I'm into. I learned more sitting around the coffee pot, sitting around the water cooler, walking by someone's office, even walking by someone's cubicle to where I could say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And in a 15-minute, 10-minute, 3-minute conversation, I could learn more about the business. So I'm anti working from home. However, there is flexibility in work that I support. But anyway, that's just me. And I think a lot of I speak for boomers.
You speak for boomers, all boomers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every one of them.
everyone. Going along with that, we also believe in a work life balance with flexible work hours. It's important to us.
Yep, yep. And I think you got it a little backwards. Life work
Yeah.
balance. We went through that in the last podcast. I applaud you. Life work balance. You guys get it right. I wish I could be more like that. Even today, I wish I could be more like that.
Yeah, a whole episode probably coming on that in the near future because there's things that we do that were not a thing to be able to do even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So we also prefer collaborative work environments. You just said it's all the collaboration around the water cooler. And that's not necessarily what millennials mean by that, but we love working together. I think that's why like co-working spaces in the businesses where they do require you to come in are so attractive to
Yep.
millennials because I might be on the product side of our business and the marketing nerd might be somewhere else. But if we're in the same place and the marketing nerd can learn from the product nerd about what it does, man, both of us are going to get better.
So we've lost all of our marketing people listening to the podcast now, nerds and all the other ones. But let me tell you this: even with you, you called me the other day and say, "Hey, Dad, I need to put a Murphy bed up in one of my rooms. Hey, come help me." You could have done that yourself, but you would prefer. And I don't know if it's just the wisdom that we share. We seem to complement one another quite well, or whether it's just like you want to have someone to jabber jabber with while you're doing your work. We got the kids together. We all contributed. Steph contributed, and everything else. But it was a collaborative investment in putting that Murphy bed up. But it would turn out really nice, by the way.
Yeah, and the dinner afterwards was pretty darn good too.
I work for food.
Millennials also spend a lot of money on experiences. We we really like it. And you know who really gets this is Mark Cuban. The dude is investing into experiential things left and right because he realizes we want to be a part of whatever it is that we're spending our money on.
Yeah.
We don't want to be a passive participant. We want to be an active engager.
Well, actually, your family has taught my wife and I quite a bit about this. Is like we don't need any more presents. I don't. We don't have room for them. You've been so gracious in giving the presents and everything else. So we've actually resorted to family vacations, whether that's a 1 week or a 2 week in Europe or whatever. We've actually resorted to to having an experience. And believe me, I tell you, it's so much better. We look and giggle at the pictures that we take. So I'm all for this one, and we learned that from you.
Yeah. Next, dress code is questionable. For those of you who are watching again the YouTube, you can see I'm recording today in a t-shirt with what is it? A skeleton. What does it say, Papa?
Smithsonian has the bone.
Yeah, that's right. It's my other favorite podcast. They we just it's you're gonna I know what you're gonna say. It's too casual.
It is. And I got one word, maybe two, be appropriate. If you're gonna go in somewhere and you're looking for business, be appropriate. If you're gonna go to church, be appropriate. If you're gonna go to the beach, be appropriate. All of those places, a lot of the millennials don't get that. And that stresses me a little bit because um
I would say this is more than though. This is really an American thing as opposed to a millennial thing. It's an American millennial thing. You go international and they're much more reserved. They're much more formal, not in like a tuxedo type of formal, but they wear button-up dress shirts. The guys do.
they don't wear their
They
pajamas to
don't wear
Walmart.
pajamas to Walmart.
So anyway,
Yeah.
now we've lost all our Walmart listeners.
uh, we uh we won't put up with a social media ban at work. I've actually heard of millennials writing into their offer letter that the company has to allow the millennial to post from work. They're working it in as part of the job package. We're gonna do our job for you, but we're also gonna talk about this work and the things that I do, which as a business owner scares me to death. But as a millennial, I'm like, wow, free marketing. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, it is tricky, as long as it doesn't draw away from or counter the, intent of the business. I think that would be okay, but unfortunately, in most instances, it is not a productive part of the business and the business model. So,
Spoken like a boomer.
yeah.
Man, we've got a lot here. We're going to go through these last few pretty quickly because we're running out of time. We believe that we can help our bosses, the boomers and the Gen Xers, learn new things and think that we should be mentoring those older workers in areas like the use of technology, work-life balance, things like that.
You think that you can run the company is what you say is and in some instances, like you've taught me a lot about this setup and everything else here. But don't come in there and say, I'm going to teach you some lessons, sir. And I get that feeling quite a bit. So
Feeling is mutual. We like to job hop a lot, and
yeah.
we've talked about that in a previous episode, so go check that out. Millennials marry later in life. We're having kids later in life. We just generally have pushed everything back. I think you look at boomers and some Gen X, and there might have been like, oh, I'm going to have a gap year and then I'll do college. But then as soon as the college is done, I'm moving on with life and we're going to get married. We're going to have kids. We're going to have the white picket fence. Um, and that's just not the same anymore.
Yeah.
We're focusing on our careers for the first decade. And then when we get, to be 30, 32, 33, like, oh, hold on a second. This clock is ticking. I got to figure this thing out.
Sneaks up on you.
Yeah. We also have a lower divorce rate, and I think there's a couple things that go into that. The first is millennials are less likely to get married, which is a part of it.
Yeah.
But also, we've seen what divorce can do. Many millennials have lived through single parent families and having to swap back and forth between mom and dad's house and all these different things. And so there is a lower divorce rate. But I think also part of that is, hey, I was 35 when I got married. I had figured out who I was. I figured out my career. There's not the financial
Stresses. Yeah.
stresses of early 20 marriages. So anyway, lower divorce rates. We all think we're going to be millionaires,
Yep.
which with hyperinflation, we probably will. So
But a loaf of bread will be $20,000. So
exactly. Yeah, more than half have tattoos. I can say I'm tattoo-less.
tatless.
I'm tatless.
Please,
Oh,
tatless.
I'm tatless.
I've heard, how's your tats? Show me your tats.
Yeah, no, more than half have tattoos. Unique names or spelling for the kids. This is definitely a Utah thing. Having been born and raised there, the name David in the early part of our thing, that's a millennial thing for sure.
Certainly is.
Um, Declining churchgoers. Millennials are less likely to attend church and to attend church regularly. I think it's interesting to note, uh, millennials are also less likely to be Christmas and Easter
Yeah,
churchgoers. It's
yeah,
it's not just like, "Oh, I'm not gonna go on a Sunday in May." Like, no, I'm just not going to church. We're not big on driving, and leasing rather than purchasing autos. You see a lot of millennials leasing vehicles, which, from a financial standpoint, we'll get into this.
is a
It
bad.
usually just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
We do like to take ride shares. The Uber, Lyfts. Yeah, it says taxis, but unless you're in the city, the Big Apple, taxis really aren't the thing.
Yeah, and there's not a convenient way to pay like
Mhm.
there is with, Uber or,
Lyft.
Lyft.
Yeah.
Lyft, like that.
Millennials love podcasts.
Way to go, millennials. Keep listening. You'll learn a lot from this podcast, especially as we talk about boomers.
Oh, brother. We dislike cable, and when we love to stream
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
which
yeah.
we really that's something that should have been listed above. We killed cable.
Yeah, yeah, we should. We
Yeah.
should.
Um, our view on companies, it's really it in it's less. Oh, we kind of talked about this as well, but it's less about the value of the company that the company is bringing based on their core products or services, and more on what can this do from a social impact area. It's not about making money, which is what businesses are a big part of. That's a big part of the business is making money. So I don't know. We've kind of ruined that one. We have a different view on it for
Yeah.
sure. We're willing to accept bad service.
Just because you don't wanna make someone's day unpleasant. You know, I don't know where you stand with tipping, but tipping we could go on and on about tipping. Everybody wants a tip. Even when I self-checkout now, there's a thing for tipping. But I
Yeah.
tell you, there's the service industry has struggled since COVID quite a bit. So,
Yeah. We do a lot of online review reading.
yeah,
Before we buy anything, we research stuff.
yeah.
We're also spending more on whatever it is we're buying. We're buying the best and crying once, but we're doing a lot of research before we get to that point. Millennials drink and smoke less. It's just there's fewer instances and
Yep.
desire to
And
do.
I think we talked about that with the
Yeah,
health boom, I think. So,
and we just absolutely love to be vocal about the boomers.
yeah,
We love it.
you love to bash us. That was quite a list. I mean, mine was a really short podcast of the boomers because I got right to the point,
The point.
and there's so much. I don't want to say wrong. There's so much different with millennials that your list is a little bit longer, and some of those are really positive, and some of those are really negative. But
Yeah,
there's your list.
there's the
I
list.
like it. Is it going to change my mind about making me more patient or avoid confrontation? I don't know. You'll have to watch the next podcast to find out.
Yep. Next time, we're going to talk about the things that millennials do to irritate boomers
And
and millennials that things they do not understand about boomers.
that's right. That's
So
right. Both
tune in
sides.
next time. Next week, we'll see you same place, same time. And don't forget that just because it's different
Doesn't mean it's wrong.